Okay, let's play a little game of connect the dots. I'm gonna throw three big ideas at you. Ideas that pretty much define the world we're living in right now. They might seem totally separate, but trust me, they're gonna connect in a pretty wild way. First up, AI warfare. You know what I'm talking about. Automated drones, targeting systems that think for themselves. It's this whole trend of taking the human soldier further and further away from the actual fight. Okay, idea number 2, proxy conflicts. This is where the big superpowers fight each other, but not really. They do it indirectly, you know? They back different factions in smaller wars, pulling the strings from a distance without ever getting their own hands dirty.
And for the final piece of the puzzle, just look around. I'm talking about the massive divides in our own societies. Politically, socially, it feels like we're being split into tribes that can't even talk to each other anymore. These huge, deep cracks are everywhere.
So, you've got AI war, proxy conflicts, and a society tearing itself apart. Now, what if I told you an anime from 1979 saw all of this coming? That's right, 45 years ago. We're talking about Mobile Suit Gundam. And in this explainer, we're going to dig into how this old school show ended up being a shockingly accurate prophecy for the world we live in today.
So how on earth did Gundam pull this off? Well, to get it, you have to realize just how groundbreaking this show was back in the day. This was absolutely not your average giant robot cartoon. It completely flipped the entire genre on its head. See, before Gundam, giant robots were basically superheroes. They were these invincible, one-of-a-kind machines fighting for truth and justice against obviously evil monsters. We call that the super robot era. Gundam just threw all that in the trash. It created something new, the real robot genre. Here, the giant robots, they call them mobile suits, aren't special. They're just weapons. Mass-produced, clunky tools of war, kind of like a tank or a fighter jet. And the pilots? They're just scared soldiers fighting in these messy, morally gray battles, where it's really hard to tell who the good guys even are. The whole story kicks off during this huge, brutal conflict called the One-Year War. So the backstory is humanity's moved into space. We're living in these gigantic spinning cylinders called colonies. But the folks born out in space, the space noids, they feel like they're getting a raw deal from the government back on Earth. So one nation of colonies, the Principality of Zeon, says enough is enough and declares independence. This sparks a massive, devastating war across the entire solar system. And I mean, this is total war. But here's where Gundam gets really brilliant. It takes this massive, galaxy-spanning war and shrinks it down, showing it all through the eyes of just a few people. At the heart of it all is one of the most legendary rivalries in anime history, a terrified kid versus a mysterious, masked ace pilot. On one side, you've got our main character, Amuro Ray. And let me tell you, he is not your typical hero. He's a socially awkward tech geek who just stumbles into the cockpit of the Gundam, this top-secret superweapon. He's basically forced to become a soldier, and the show doesn't shy away from the absolute psychological hell this puts him through. And his nemesis? The one and only Char Aznavour, the Red Comet. This guy is the total opposite. He's this cool, charismatic, brilliant enemy ace. But he's not just some mustache-twirling villain. He's fighting for what he believes in, and, as we find out, for a very personal, hidden quest for revenge. And it's not just about these two. The ship Amaru is on, the White Base, its crew is basically a bunch of refugees, regular civilians and teenagers who are just thrown into the meat grinder. And the show is absolutely brutal about it. You'll get to know a character, you'll start to like them, and then boom, they're gone, just like that. The message couldn't be clearer. War is not a glorious adventure, it's just a tragic, relentless machine that chews people up. Okay, so we've got this gritty, realistic war story. But then, layered on top of all that tragedy, the show introduces this big, high-minded sci-fi idea. And this is the concept that really pushes Gundam from being just a great war story into a deep, philosophical look at where humanity is headed.
And that concept is called the new type. So, in the world of Gundam, there's this theory that as people are born and raised in space, they're starting to evolve. They're developing a kind of sixth sense. New types have insane intuition, heightened empathy, to the point where they can almost read minds and even see moments into the future. It's presented as this beautiful hope for humanity, right? A chance for us to finally truly understand each other.
But here's the classic Gundam tragedy. What happens when humanity develops the potential for perfect understanding? We turn it into a weapon. Of course we do. The military looks at these empathetic, evolved humans and doesn't see a path to peace. They see the perfect soldier, a pilot who can predict the enemy's every move. So, The very thing that could save humanity becomes the most powerful tool for killing each other. It's just heartbreaking. And all of this feeds into the huge questions the show is constantly asking. It's not about good guys and bad guys. It's about how war is a tragedy for everyone involved. It's about how a single person can possibly stand up against these gigantic, impersonal political systems. And the biggest question of all, can we as a species ever evolve beyond our basic instinct to fight and destroy each other? What is the real price we pay deep in our souls for all this conflict?
Now, just let this sink in. Everything we've talked about, the gritty realism, the morally complex characters, these deep philosophical questions, this was all in a TV show from 1979. And this is where things get, well, a little spooky. Let's take what we saw in Gundam's world and hold it up right next to ours.
The parallels are just wow. You look at Gundam's one-year war, fought between these big powers over ideology, that looks a whole lot like our modern proxy wars. The mobile suit technology that completely changed warfare? Hello, AI and drone combat. The deep-seated conflict between the people on Earth and the space-knowing colonists. It's impossible not to see echoes of our own heated debates about immigration and national identity. Even Amuro, the kid who gets dragged into the war, feels like a parallel for how young people today get sucked into these intense ideological battles online. And the new type, this idea of evolved empathy, it's strangely similar to our own quest to build predictive AI models and maybe even empathetic machines.
And that's really the key to the whole thing. The giant robot, the mobile suit. It was never really about the robot. It was always a metaphor. It's a giant walking, fighting mirror that the show holds up to humanity. It reflects our own struggles, our politics, our relationship with technology, and yeah, our tragic, seemingly endless love for fighting one another.
So that leaves us with one final, kind of chilling thought. 45 years ago, Gundam held up a mirror to its own time, and it accidentally gave us a crystal clear reflection of our future, our present. So the real question isn't whether the show is prophetic. The question is, what does it say about us that this 45-year-old reflection still looks so damn familiar?